Hello.
Hello. I'm Bad Juju.
And I'm J-Bone.
And this is
Bad Juju
and J-Bone presents. We have stories to tell you, authors and illustrators to introduce you to.
Yeah. Here we go again. There's lots of parts to our show. We are coming to you from the Pacific Northwest.
And so let's get to it. We're bringing you episode number 10. Mwah.
And now it's time for Titles, Talk, and Tipples with Jiba Molei. And she has guests.
And her guests are Jiba Molei Anderson, who happens to be my birthday twin. We have the same birthday. And then Tom Frye, who has over 12 novels. And John Linwood Grant from across the pond. He is the editor of Occult Detectives magazine. Catch ya after. Hi, I'm JuJu Molei, and this is Titles Talk and Tipples. With me this evening is Jiba Molei Anderson. Welcome, Jiba.
Hello. Hello. Happy to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. So you have so much that has gone on this last year and a few months since last we talked.
Yeah.
And we're going to jump into all of that. But first, I need to know what we're tippling on.
So last time, because I'm not a big drinker, but, I do take edibles. So I would take
Yeah.
a half of this berry burst.
Berry burst. Okay.
Berry burst edible.
And mine's liquid. It's a ginger, turmeric, antioxidant, CBD, tonic. So now we're under the influence of tipples. Sit back, relax.
You're right.
All right, so first question. Preference, pen or pencil?
Pencil is always starting off.
Okay.
And I'll eventually go to pen.
All right.
Since as I'm working digitally now, I still have that mentality of penciling first before going into ink.
Question 2. What artists have inspired you?
There have been so many. But my top 5 have always been Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, George Perez, may he rest in peace, Brian Stelfreeze, Steve Rude. The 5th always switches up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I would say leaning more towards Walt Simonson as my 5th.
Yeah,
as long as it's not AI generated, I'm good with it.
Yeah, we can get into that. Oh my goodness. Maybe that should be question number 3, AI or not, right?
Yeah, nah.
Like putting people out of business, support real artists.
Well, beyond that is that honestly, AI is a scam. A 5-year-old who picks up a crayon and starts scribbling on the pencil is more of an artist than these people are.
Absolutely. And it's other people's art just meshed together.
Exactly.
And it's happening in the writing community too.
AI, the thing that these people keep forgetting is that to be a creative means that you are using your mind, your body, and soul all at once. And in terms of art, what people respond to is the soul.
Yes.
That you put into the craft of making that, right? And the soul only comes from putting your mind to it and putting your body into it, meaning doing the physical act of that.
And that's the thing is there's always been artists and writers who kind of half-assed stuff. The thing is that your audience knows you're going to a secluded place and can take only 3 books with you. And then what are you taking?
That's tough.
I know. Everybody hates this question. They're like, only 3?
Number 1, a book called Comic Book Design. The second one would be The Hero with an African Face by Clyde W. Ford. It's a toss-up between The Art of Brian Stelfreeze and George Perez Storyteller.
Okay. What experimental aspects do you play with in your work? Or do you follow all the rules?
I understand the rules, so I know how to bend the rules.
Where's the strangest place the muse has visited you?
no place is strange.
No place is strange.
when the muse visits.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What comic book character influenced you? And
okay,
what...
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. How about that?
What comic book character influenced me?
Yeah.
That was simple. Batman. Batman was the first. That was the character that I globbed onto when I was a little boy.
Besides, like spiritual, mythological, and superheroes, do you dabble in anything else?
I have been tapped to write for role-playing games. They asked me to write horror. They asked me to write, for spy movies and things of that nature. And also fantasy. In fact, I'm launching a Kickstarter. In this world, there are different pearls of, this other universe that is of dark fantasy, that is of two-fisted blaxploitation action and super spies and, and vampire drag houses and immortal killers walking the streets of Detroit and a hero that's emerging to close the gates of hell. And all of these concepts come together in the world that I like to call the Dark Kingdom. It is a 64-page, illustrated novel that introduces these concepts free from the games, introduces these characters, introduces the other realm I like to call in the Blaxis. It's gritty, it's urban, you know what I mean? It's got the horror, it's got the funk, it's got the fun in there, So it's grimy, it's gritty, it's interesting. You can check me out on Facebook if you just type in Jiba Molei Anderson. You can also check, hit me up on the gram. I am at Jazz Intellect on Instagram as well. That's only one Z.
Well, thank you so much, Jiba. It's so nice to talk to you.
Yo, roll up your sleeves because we need to fight the good fight. Let's do our bit and let's start causing some good trouble. All right?
Definitely. In the interview in Bad Juju and J-Bone Presents, you're getting about 7 minutes of Jiba, but if you stay tuned, in a couple of weeks, we will release the entire interview with Jiba, and so you'll get to hear the whole thing. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Scream wild. Oh my gosh, do we have a creepy public service announcement to share with you tonight.
The pitfalls of riding your bicycle and not being too careful with the safety and the rules, and yeah, bad things can happen if you don't pay attention.
Who knew that riding your bike could be so deadly, dark, and dangerous?
This one's called One Got Fat.
From 1963.
1963.
And we have no idea why it's called that. But we'll find out.
But we'll find out together.
With you.
1963, I wasn't even dead yet. That
was 1863.
1863.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Catch you on the other side.
This story is about 10 rather close relations of ours who seem to get into almost exactly the same kind of trouble we do. All 10 of these jolly characters lived in the same neighborhood and were all good friends, generally speaking. Each of them had a bicycle, and each took care of his bicycle in exactly the took care of himself. One day they held a group think and decided to have a picnic in a little park just 9 blocks away. Now that doesn't sound far, but a lot can happen in 9 blocks, right? Well, sound off out there. I said right? Right. So, they all ran home and made themselves sandwiches. I know that doesn't sound too likely, but of course, human. Then they hurried back, all ready to go. Now, one of the 10 was a rather hungry type. His name was Slim Jim McGupney, and his picnic lunch was what you might call a portable banquet, right? Right. Slim knew that his big sack would be hard to handle, so he asked Orville Slump if he'd carry it for him. Orville had a basket on the rear of his bike. He was a good sort, and he answered, okay. Some of the others noticed this and asked him if he'd carry theirs, too. Orville answered graciously, well, I guess so. And naturally, everybody else did the same until Orville's rear basket looked like a chuck wagon. At last, they were ready to go, and at a given signal, they went. Now, this is Rooty Toot Jasperson. He had the newest bike in the bunch, and he was as proud of it as he could be. He made it a point to get in the lead, and there he intended to stay. It would seem that Rooty Toot was a slam-bang go-getter headed for big things in life, right? Right. But when you have to be first all the time, there are a few things you find you don't have time for. Such things as making hand signals. Oh, he knew very well that bike riders are supposed to signal just like auto drivers. Hand down for slow or stop. Hand up for right turn. Hand straight out for left turn. But pretty soon, he began to feel silly making so many signals to stay out in front. So he skipped one to rest his poor old tired arm. Just one signal. Once. At this point, Rooty Toot Jasperson left the party. This charming little thing was actually christened Tinkerbell McDillingfiddy. She's a sweet and lovely girl, but she has a rather poor memory. Sometimes she forgets to brush her teeth. Sometimes she leaves homework at home. And sometimes she forgets to look at traffic signals. Now she knows that she should. She knows that she should ride just like auto drivers drive. But she's so busy being happy all the time that her little thoughts tend to wander and... Oh, dear, they're wandering again. Here she goes. Exit Tinkerbell McDillingfiddy. She forgot now and then. Now, let me introduce Philip Flugel. He's a star athlete, the president of his class, an honor student, and he has the handsomest profile in school. Just look at it, will you? Now, Flug, as his friends call him, has one little flaw in his character. He is very easily bored. Right now, he's asking himself why everyone has to go up this side of the street. It's so samey. So, proving that even a class president can make mistakes, he decided to ride against traffic. Oh, he knows that auto drivers never do this, and that he should follow the very same traffic rules. But he's in the mood to do something different. Anyway, there are no policemen around to see him. Philip Flugel is no longer bored. You've probably wondered about this fellow on foot. Well, his name is Mosby Pomegranate. He is splendid in dramatics, but he works so hard memorizing his lines that he doesn't get around to a lot of other things. He never made it down to register his bike and get a license for it. He knows very well that a license makes it easy to find out who he is if he's in an accident, and makes the bike easy to trace if it's lost or stolen. That's his trouble. Last week, while he was rehearsing the lead in King Kong, someone rode off with his bike. He went to the police, but of course they couldn't help him since it had no license or registration. He stomped out of the police station angrily, and he's been stomping ever since. Farewell, Mosby Pomegranate, victim of fallen arches.
What do you go by when you're writing?
John Linwood Grant.
John Linwood Grant. Okay. Yeah, that's how I know you. Without using name brands, you can explain what we're drinking.
It says it is packed full of red fruit and cherry character, which I suspect means it's product of many more than one country.
Right.
A juicy red.
A juicy red. Okay. So that's what we're drinking.
There we go.
We're drinking a juicy red. So cheers.
Cheers. Oh, God. I must buy some better wine next time. Yeah.
You're a publisher, an editor, a writer. You're kind of all of it, aren't you?
Well, the one thing I'm happily not is an actual publisher. I just work very closely with a number of them, and I'm a sort of co-partner in putting out Occult Detective magazine. But for the rest of the stuff, I tend to work as their editor or whatever they need at the time, really. So
it's a great magazine. A lot of fun. Great
Thank
stories. Good editing. That's always important.
It actually is a very good magazine.
Great stories, and it's a good size, and there's great art. I mean, my gosh, it's lovely. And yeah, illustrations and good illustrations. Good.
Each one's effectively an anthology of brand new writing. So. Yeah.
And it's occult detective, so it deals in the supernatural, which is always fun. Sometimes they're
Indeed.
creepy, sometimes they're mysterious. You also have Grey Dog Tales, right?
I do.
So tell us a little bit about that.
A site full of interviews with people, articles about anything I was interested in, weird fiction, quite a lot about the dogs, our lurchers. And peculiarities. So it just turned into an eclectic sort of general site. We signpost new books in weird fiction or historical fiction. Anything that I fancy. I have a few guest writers, but I do a lot of it myself. And it's turned into quite a nice resource. I mean, there's tons of stuff on there that you don't come across elsewhere. And every so often I write a rambling article about something really obscure for no apparent reason.
It sounds like the Grey Dog Tales is kind of a blog too. And so
yeah,
you can get
it is.
you do fictitious stories on there as well, written by you.
Oh, I write all sorts of rubbish. Yes, I do parodies. I occasionally put my own fiction on there. I lie intensely and make stuff up which is utterly untrue, purely because I'm bored. I do purely for my own amusement, and then if other people want to look at it, fine. If they don't, then there.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time with unmonetized stuff as well. I think it's kind of the art, the starving artist, right?
Yes. I'd say about 80% of my stuff is supernatural in one form or another. The stuff that I actually write.
Mm-hmm. So besides detective stories, obviously, what are some of your other stories, and where can we find your stories?
Well, I've had about 80 published in the last 5 years. So.
Sure.
Gonna get it. Oh, I know. Yes. Sorry, I've had a new collection out about 8 months ago.
I was gonna say, if you have that many stories, you should put out your own anthology.
Well, there's the collection mid last year, where all is night and starless. That sort of contains about 18 stories, which give you a good idea of what I do and where I go, ranging from stuff related to Lovecraft to folk horror, and just strange. It's sort of, some of it's contemporary weird fiction. And I had a collection before that, A Persistence of Geraniums, which was period fiction. Mm-hmm. All stuff I'd written set in my Edwardian setting.
Nice.
You can tell I'm a writer because I said set in setting, which is really, really crap. But you know what I mean.
It's okay. I think most of us write better than we speak.
I have a cycle of stories called The Last Edwardian, and they run from about 1886 to 1940, and they're really about the Edwardian period as a crux of huge societal change, and then the First World War, the flu epidemics, and everything. And it takes it through from Holmes times to just before the Second World War. The changes in what you might call the old world. And so a lot of my stories are related to that. Fairly dark. Well, they're very dark, actually. They're horrible. I don't do splatterpunk or gross out, but they're horrible in the sense that bad things happen.
Where can people check you out? So do you have a website?
Greydogtales.com.
Yeah, and that's GREYTALES.
It is. Facebook, I suppose. Facebook. John Linwood Grant on Facebook. It's all public.
Thank you very much.
I don't know whether that's been at all helpful, but it's a pleasure.
It has been helpful.
I strongly suggest that you share this with everybody you know. And if there are people you don't like, you can share it with them to annoy them. And if there are people you do like, you can share it with them just for fun.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right. See you later.
It's been a pleasure. I shall see you on Facebook sometime.
All right. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
you have a great night.
If you look carefully, you'll see Trigby Phipps. He's the smaller one in Eclipse, trying to make that bike go. His passenger is an old friend of ours, Slim Jim McGuffney. Slim Jim's bike recently collapsed from the effects of his diet, and Trigby, being a nice little fellow, agreed to ride him. Now, he knows that no auto driver would drive with a passenger in his lap. He also knows that you can't see ahead very well with someone on the handlebars, and that you can't control the bike well, and that you can't make signals either. Furthermore, it is tiring. Right? Right. So long, fellas. There seems to be a flaw in the buddy system. Meet Nellie Swybach. She's as nice as can be on foot. But when she gets on that bike, sweet Nellie becomes terribly impatient with other people's driving. Although there are only a few left now, she's having trouble sharing the street with them. So Nelbert is about to make a decision she'd never make if she weren't angry. There she goes. There she goes. She knows that riding on the sidewalk isn't allowed in her city and many others, and that even where it is, pedestrians always have the right of way. But Nelbert's upset, and she'd like to know just one good reason why she shouldn't take over the sidewalk all to herself. Nelbert Swybach got her one good reason. Those noise transportation of Filbert Bagel. Filbert hates his old bike. He refuses to take care of it because his folks will probably give him a new one for his birthday. He can't see any reason for taking care of a heap of junk, even if he made it that way himself. He will in a moment, though. You see, he doesn't know it, but he'll find out that there's not a shred of a brake left. Now, Filbert would be the first to agree that if it's worth riding, it's worth taking care of. Right? Right. Quickly meet Stanislaw Higginbottom while you can. He's a nice boy, but he won't be with us long. You are now looking straight at Stanislaw Higginbottom. He has neither lights nor reflectors. Stanislaw just wasn't quite bright enough. All of which leaves Orville. He'll get fat, all right. And here's why he ended up with all these groceries that he doesn't really want. This was Rooty Toot Jasperson. Maybe you remember why he didn't make the picnic. He didn't signal, just once. Do you recall Tinkerbell McDillingfiddy? She forgot to watch the signals, just once. And good old Phil Flugel, he rode up the wrong side of the street, once. Mossby Pomegranate was the walking one. He didn't get around to registering his bike and getting a license. It would have taken him only a few minutes. The small one was Trigby Phipps, and his passenger was Slim Jim McGuffney. They rode double into trouble. Who can forget Nelbert Swyback? She wanted to know one good reason why the sidewalks didn't belong to her. Then there was Filbert Bagel. He didn't take care of his brakes, so they didn't take care of him. And good old Stanislaw Higginbottom. No lights, no reflector, no Stanislaw. So that's why Orville Slump is picnicking alone today. He watched the signals, he obeyed traffic signs, he made hand signals, he rode alone, he stayed on the right side of the street, got a license, rode just like auto drivers drive, and kept the brakes and all in good condition. And he got fat. Of course, it was very lonely, but not as lonely as this. But then, as anyone can plainly see, he wasn't a monkey, right? Now, that sounds as if you really mean it, right?
Oh my gosh, those were some creepy little monkeys pulling each other's tails.
Creepy.
They made
monkey
some
children.
bad decisions.
You were going to ride your bike correctly, right? Right.
No, left.
Hi, this is Titles Talk Tipples. I'm Jude Tall, the author of the Everstein Chronicles, and with me this evening is Tom Frye. Welcome, Tom. Thank you. And what are we drinking this evening?
I've got just iced coffee.
And I have hot coffee because it's 50 degrees here. So
Is it really?
Oh yeah, we're cold and raining for.
Oh my gosh, it's 110. I mean 109 here today. Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Yeah, you bet. Scratching on the 8 Ball is my very first born son. It's since 1982 I've had that out.
Okay.
And it was the start of my career in writing.
Okay.
And it's the most lost, stolen, missing book in the public school system here.
That's cool.
When that book first came out, it had a marijuana leaf on the front cover, and it was rejected in all elementary schools because of that, because they thought I was pro-drugs. And some middle school teacher read it, and she made it required reading for all middle schools in Lincoln, and found out that I was anti-drug, not pro-drug.
Right, yeah.
So, and then a lot of kids picked that book up because of that leaf, because it caught their attention. And my publisher was pretty wise back in those days. Yeah, and that book was based on a lot of the kids I worked with. I was a youth worker for 45 years. And it includes a lot of true stories. I changed the name of all the kids, except 7 or 8 of them wanted to have their names in my book for immortality reasons. And so, yeah, I changed their first and their last name so it wouldn't be, I would never get sued by them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, because they might change their mind as they get older, right? So the 3 books that make up Havelock, the Great American Novel. I thought I was saying it wrong. Are Scratching on the 8 Ball. What were the Kid, the Cop, and the Con, and what was the third one?
Woods of Bloody Mary.
The Woods of Bloody Mary. Yeah. Oh, okay. And that was about the woman that won on her property, right? That's based on a true event?
1966. Mary Partington lived all by herself in a 12-room house that her father built out by Salt Creek, out in the country. It was called Havelock Avenue in those days. It's now called Superior Street because it's a highway. But she had been harassed for years. Kids used to sneak in her house, steal stuff off of her table. They tied her to a chair one night, ate all her food.
Oh my gosh.
They shot her in the stomach through the window with a .22 rifle.
Oh my gosh.
And her family finally gave her a 12 gauge and said, keep this in case somebody ever, and this ex-mental patient, 27 years old. We always thought it was a kid when we were kids,
Yeah.
She'll shoot kids, But,
yeah, you're right.
It was a 27-year-old mental patient who climbed in her kitchen window, and she blew him away and killed him. And they took her gun away, and the harassment continued. And they shot her goats. She had all these goats that she had butter from, and it was terrible.
So they just bullied this one woman at the edge of town.
Yeah. And they called her Bloody Mary because she shot the guy. When I was 14, my best friend and I were riding our motorcycles past her place, and she was sitting on her porch. We thought for sure she had a shotgun in her lap in her rocking chair.
Yeah.
And this guy jumped off her porch and flagged us down. And he says, there's 3 horses that just got out of the corral. He said, if you chase them around and get them tired enough to get them back in, I'll pay you $5 a piece. And we looked at each other. We looked over at Mary, and we're like, okay. And we chased those horses for about an hour and got them tired out. He paid us, and we looked at her, and she stood up. She had a broom in her hand, and she waved at us. and ever since then, we'd go by and we'd wave at her, and we'd tell all our friends, don't flip her off. Don't knock her outhouse over. Don't launch her mailbox. She was a school teacher.
Okay.
School for years. She loved kids.
Oh, how sad that for her life to go that route where people were so horrible to her.
I included the story is basically trying to make sure that she's exonerated for all the evil everybody attributed to her, because she's not an evil lady at all.
Right.
So most of my stuff is based on true crime, but it's fictional, of course. I have 12 of my books recorded as audiobooks on audible.com right now.
I love the cover of Beatrice 1963.
Yeah, so I eventually knew I was going to write a story about that town, and I did. And it turned to be a sci-fi kind of a mystery thriller.
Okay. Oh, it's sci-fi. Okay.
Yeah, Knights of the Golden Circle, Jesse James's Gold, and an experimental island, and a virus that escaped.
And what I read, it sounds like 2 kids are the main characters of the book, and they're the ones that go on all this adventures and stuff. So is it written for adults though, or can kids read this book?
Oh, it's for kids. Every story I write. No, it's not all adult. It's for young people, but adults can read it. And because my whole series is kind of a Sons of Anarchy meets Game of Thrones. Hey, thanks for listening tonight. And if you like us and you want to subscribe to us, check it out on YouTube and audible.com and Amazon, Kindle Unlimited, and tomjfrye.org is my website.
Sure.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and you can also find it. You'll also be able to find this on www.judemadelichhall.com, as well as the streaming channel subgenres.ca, as in Canada, not California, but Subgenres streaming channel on Roku and Android TV. And in the fall of 2022, we will be aired in Kalamazoo, Michigan on Public Media Network. Thank you so much. And thank you, Tom.
Thanks a lot.
You might be wondering why I've asked you here today. It appears we need to have a talk. Or maybe I'll just do the talking. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Concoctions from a Coffin. Spooky little story read to you by JuJu, by an author named Tom Frye. And this story is actually based on true events. Enjoy.
Good evening, children of the night. Here's another dread time story for your nightmare fuel. When my best friend Craig Klein and I were 13, we were riding our dirt bikes on the trails near Salt Creek. There before us, seated on his own bike, was 18-year-old Dennis Grant, a friend of ours from the neighborhood. Grant gave us a warning, saying, "Beware of the shotgun-toting witch who will shoot kids who trespass on her land. Her name is Bloody Mary. Behind her old haunted house lives Pigman. Pigman will only shoot you with his salt loads from his double barrel, but Mary will shoot to kill." See, in 1966, Mary Partington, a retired school teacher who lives alone out here in the country, shot and killed 27-year-old Eldon Hill, who had been climbing through her kitchen window. While Grant told us this, we sat at a deep ravine known as the Fat Lady's Nightmare, due to the trees grown close to the sides of the trail. Grant said, "This is the very spot where Bobby Morgan launched himself into legendary eternity. 16-year-old Bobby Morgan went full throttle on his dirt bike at 60 miles per hour down this straightaway, believing he could jump the 30 feet of empty air between the two banks. Bobby and his dirt bike plunged down into Salt Creek 60 feet below. He died upon impact." Right when Grant finished that story, we heard the deep rumble of a Harley coming from the opposite side of the nightmare. We watched as this cop on his fully dressed 1200 motorcycle rolled out of Bloody Mary's woods on the opposite side of the ravine. The big cop started down the opposite slope, but the moment he set his sights on us and started up the slope, we sped out of there. I looked back to see the cop hit a dip in the trail, lose complete control of his massive Harley, and crash to the ground with the bike on top of him. He began struggling to pull himself out from under that motorcycle. He even gestured at us to come back down the trail to help him. But we were not about to chance getting a trespassing ticket, so we sat there, watching him work his way free. When he finally managed to pull himself out from under that beast, foul words exploded from his mouth and he gestured at us to come back to him. We just spun our bikes around and tore out of there. It was that evening, gathered around a huge campfire in a wooded area near the cycle trails, that we talked about the event of the day. The place was known as the Woods, and it was there that I met bikers from clubs like the Screaming Eagles, the Association, the Outlaws, the Gypsies, and even a Hell's Angel. At 13, my goal then was to become a biker. I began wearing my cut-off jean jacket with the American flag on the back, and I began to write a story I named Wings Like Eagles. About 2 hours into our woodsy, a big mountain of a guy named Gino snatched up a 12-pack of beer and urged me and Grant to follow him to the top of this hill 50 yards away from the campfire. It was just starting to get stormy. Lightning zigzagged through the sky. Thunder rumbled above us. A perfect night for those two to scare me. Gino said, "Did you hear about that animal some scientists bred up at Ag College? It was part baboon and part dog. It had the face of a demented baboon with long, sharp fangs. Then one day it escaped from its cage up on campus. It attacked the security guard and fled, making a path right through our neighborhood. It left behind a whole slew of mangled cats. The creature then made its way out here to the woods, killing coyotes and rabbits, even feasting on Pigman's pigs. One night, Bobby was riding through here and he saw these green glowing eyes and then the face of the salt water creature. It lunged out at him. Bobby gunned his bike and popped a wheelie and tore out of here. It thundered. Lightning streaked across the sky. Thunder boomed. Lightning flashed. In that next flash of light, we all three looked down to the southern edge of the woods, and there, just near the pond, we saw a large, dark shape, all hunched over near a tree. Gino and Grant sprang to their feet, peering in disbelief at the crooked, dark shape. I just sat there, my mouth hanging open and my eyes gone wide, very wide. The lightning receded, leaving the pond at the edge of the woods in darkness. When another burst lit up the night, the dark, hunched-over figure appeared to be heading right for the hill where we were. I don't know which one ran first, but before I knew it, I was seated there alone with a 12-pack of beer and the creature shambling its way over to the hill where I sat. When the lightning came again, I peered down at the bottom of the hill and caught one glimpse of a hunched form standing there, peering up at me. I completely forgot about the beer as I raced back to the fire in the center of the woods. By the time I got back there, Gino and Grant were telling everyone about what we had seen. Grant looked at me and said, "Did you bring that 12-pack with you? If you didn't, go back and get it." I snorted. "You want that beer? Go back and get it yourself. Because you saw the same thing I did out there, so go screw yourself." Which, had I said the same thing at any other time in my life, Grant would have beat the crap out of me. Both he and Gino simply exchanged looks with each other and then peered out into the darkness of the woods. Neither one went back to get the beer. And that was a true story by Tom J Frye. In a couple of weeks, you'll get another story about Bloody Mary. And if you keep tuning in about a week, you're going to get a story by Jiba Molei Anderson, read by him. Yeah, he chose to read his story this round. And a couple weeks after that, you'll get a story by John Linwood Grant. So thank you so much. Check out www.tomjfrye, that's Tom J Frye with an E.org. And we'll catch you next time. Dreadful dreams.
Hi, thanks for watching our show. We want you to subscribe to our channel.
Yes, we want you to subscribe.
I did the same thing.
To our channel.
Please subscribe, like, tell all your friends.
Yes, all your friends.
If you have any friends, And if you don't, go make some friends. Be nice, be kind to some strangers and just make a friend. And tell them about our show and then don't ever call them again.
Could be a good talking point.
It could be a great talking point. Hey, have you seen Bad Juju and J-Bone Presents?
There you go.
No? Here, watch this. Do that for us.
And the Bad Juju voodoo doll won't get you.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Toodaloo.